Hello, everyone. This is Nick Allen with Better Together. Very excited to have you all on Sunday show today. We are honored to be with M. Cisneros, who is the Deputy Director at Loving Beyond Understanding. M, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
We're excited. Yeah, it's great to have you on. Um, you know, Before we jump into obviously it's Pride Month in here in Grand Junction, but would love to know more about your organization, Loving Beyond Understanding. So can you tell us a bit more about that and how
Yeah,
it's going?
yeah, great. I got hired on to Living Beyond Understanding in 2023. But the agency's been open since 2022. And it was founded by Andy Tillman. They came to this area and they just really they had this calling to meet the needs of LGBTQ people in our area. Um, and it started out as a support group, and then they developed some pretty impressive workshops and trainings. Um, and then in 2023, they asked me. We had at that point been collaborating on my own youth support group, and they asked me if I would be interested in coming on to open up a center,
Hmm.
which was really cool and exciting. Um, but I was like, I don't know if that's a good idea. And I'm really glad that, there's so many factors to think about. And they're like, no, it'll be a good idea. And we opened up in a very small office space off of North. And
Hmm.
before we officially opened, we found uh, a different location off of South Avenue. And we were there for about a year. And currently, we are in a really cool building space downtown. We get a little under 100 participants coming in a week, and
Nice.
come in and hang out and socialize and create things and get support. And yeah, that's kind of where the agency's kind of established right now is primarily around social support, and we're leaning into mental health access
Hmm.
with our program, and we are working on our training program as well. So yeah.
Great. Great. What's what type of trainings do you all put on when you talk about those?
Yeah. So there's the core workshop, which is essentially it's called the Gender Diverse Compassion Awareness Workshop. They're pretty intensive. They're we have three of them that are each 6 hours long.
Hmm.
Um, they're really cool because we also offer continuing education credits through the National Association of Social Work. Um, so they're accredited workshop courses. We get a lot of amazing feedback about them, and yeah, essentially what we try to do during these courses. I mean, there's three different ones that kind of build on each other, but we really want to work with people and walking them through not just terminology and why pronouns are important, but really, reconceptualizing how they understand gender,
Hmm.
and encouraging them to reflect on ways that we can be more inclusive.
Hmm. Hmm. Tell me more. Why did you all go with the, title of Loving Beyond Understanding? What does that mean?
That was before my time, but from what I understand, Andy, there was a part of them that really wanted that that filled they come from a more spiritual background.
Okay.
They reference what really motivates them, and this idea that you know um that you don't have to understand someone to love them or give them any dignity or compassion, that we're all worthy of love and dignity and compassion, and so that's kind of the philosophy of it,
Hmm.
like at its core, um, just just love people, and don't and you don't and it doesn't have to mean that you have to understand them fully, or it's just all about you know um like getting rid of those barriers, I guess. And I think understanding is one of them that you know a lot of people use as a
Mm,
shield to really connect to people. And so, understanding can still happen. And, we definitely help with that process. But I think for us, our biggest, the thing that we want to put forward is that it's not, um, it doesn't have to precede love. So,
right, right.
yeah.
When we have, I know folks that, I've worked with and organized with that are like, I just don't get it. I don't get, and maybe I'm being a little bit snarky, but
Yeah.
they're like, the pronouns are too hard, or I just don't understand, and it makes sense of like, well, let's love each other first. Don't get hung up on understanding or your arguments around grammar. It's about just respecting and loving each other as human beings first.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I think if you've never really interacted with this community very much, or if you've never really had a chance to use non traditional pronouns, I yeah, it would be hard.
Hmm.
But that doesn't serve as like a valid enough excuse for me to just you know completely invalidate a person,
Hmm.
just because it's hard. Yeah.
Right, right. It's a mutual respect thing. So,
Yeah.
I mean, tell our audience a bit more about. I mean, what was your personal background? Did you grow up here, or what's kind of your story of living in the Western Slope in Mesa County?
Yeah, I did not grow up here. I was I was a military kid, so I was kind of grew up.
Hey, me too.
Yeah. So I was going to school in Colorado Springs. I was going to University of Colorado over there, and met a boy who
Nice.
got a job out here. I'm not still with that guy, but I stayed. Really made this my community. About 10 years ago, 13 years ago, I think. And I finished my degree at Colorado Mesa University. And I think this is the smallest town that I've lived in.
Hmm.
Um, and I think I had a lot of concerns moving here because Grand Junction certainly has a reputation for not being very open and affirming to LGBTQ people.
Certainly.
And so part of me moving here, and one of the conditions was to get really involved in the local LGBTQ community.
Hmm.
And so that started with connecting with Heidi Hess, the one Colorado representative, getting involved with Colorado West Pride, and just making all these connections. And I think at some point I really discovered how tight knit and really close and connected the LGBTQ community is out here.
Hmm.
And then in 2020, I got a job at Caris, which is currently Hilltop Connections. And a year later, they hired me to run an LGBTQ support group for teens.
Cool.
Yeah, which was like a dream job, and I was like, that's amazing. And that's how I got connected with Andy. And eventually moved over to Loving Beyond Understanding. But yeah, for about the past 5 years, a lot of my work went from being really like macro level, working with One Colorado on policy and stuff like
Hmm.
that, really being more direct services and connecting with people in my community and providing support. And yeah, it's been an interesting, unexpected, but really incredible shift. That yeah, I'm living the dream, honestly. So
Oh, I love that. And that's a journey too.
yeah.
What has it been like over the last 13 years here in Grand Junction? Have you seen things shift, or like what's the experience been like over the years?
Yeah, I would say it's interesting because I think it's there's it's Grand Junction's such an interesting little pocket of the world.
Hmm.
Some ways it really does mirror a lot of stuff that happens in the federal landscape, but it's also its own little world where things are pretty consistent. And I think part of what's changed is I do feel like there's less hostility in some ways, and then a little bit more in other ways. I feel like,
Mm.
and I feel like that's just everywhere. Where
Hmm.
you know, what's really interesting about the past 13 years or so is that we were going this direction. We in 2015 we won marriage equality, and we were on this peak of acceptance and unity. And then 2016 happened, and I think ever since then it just kind of feels like it's slowly a lot of that feeling of security and connected to community, like feeling safe, has really uh, in some ways felt like it's been reversed. I
Mm.
feel like there has been a rise in hate crime and a lot of hostility towards people in my community. Um, and those things do get scary. And I don't, it's really weird because I feel like we've progressed to some really incredible place in the world when it comes to acceptance, but we're also really regressing in other ways that feels, pretty terrifying.
Right, right. I can imagine and the frustration of, making such important gains and then to
Mhm.
see kind of those blocks get removed
Right.
and attacked. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And well, I mean, to speak on a bit of, I think that's some of my understanding of the origin of pride is like coming out and having strong expression of who you are and making sure the
Yeah.
community is aware. And so we are just in the middle of, are we Pride Month for Grand Junction here, or how do you all approach Pride? Help us understand a bit more here locally.
So, yeah, I think, well, my involvement with, just to be clear, my involvement with Colorado West Pride has been kind of proximal for
Hmm.
most of the it's been here. I've never been directly involved. I currently would consider them one of my most important community partners as the deputy director of Loving Beyond Understanding. But yeah, Pride is our Pride celebration is hosted in September. Um, I wouldn't say we recognize it formally as Pride Month.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it is a globally recognized as the month of June as Pride Month, and I think that's in large part due to the history of Stonewall riots being held in initiated in June.
Hmm.
So there's a whole history involved there. As and when Colorado West Pride used to hold Pride prior to the pandemic, it was in June. The pandemic hit in 2020, so Pride was virtual that year.
Hmm.
And from what I understand, uh, just due to my proximity, I believe the there was we were still in quarantine when planning was happening in 2021,
Hmm.
and so they had made an attempt to plan something for later, which would be September 2021. And then by the time uh, June hit, we were out of quarantine. So people were a little confused, but the plans were, the permits were already set up. And we had Pride in a parking garage over by the convention center. Um,
Right. I remember
yeah,
that.
pretty cool.
And we did a
But a lot
march too, right? Wasn't there a
um,
Pride March that year going to the
I
convention center or
I don't think so.
okay.
Yeah, I think there's always a couple of events throughout the year, but I think the actual Pride event
Hmm.
happened in September that year, and I think the a lot of things were learned from doing that was in that temperature wise, it was much more accessible.
Hmm.
know, I will say that this week was last week was really hot as well. So I don't
True.
know if the benefit because global warming obviously,
Right. Yeah. It
but
was going to be
yeah,
hotter every time.
but yeah, we I think they had realized that it was much cooler temperature wise, which means essentially that it's also much more accessible to a lot of
Hmm.
community members who can't do that kind of heat in June for very long. Um, so it kind of stayed in September as kind of an accessibility issue. It's also locally, that's when we have an event called Country Jam
Hmm.
um, in June as well, which for a lot of reasons, and this isn't like a commentary on people that listen to country music, but a lot of the people that attend that event are not always the safest to invite queer people around. So
Sure.
there's that. That's I think that was part of the thinking was we can't have it that same weekend. They didn't want to have it during Denver Pride, and
Hmm.
then there's always the weekend that we wanted to honor Juneteenth. So
Right.
it just made that week, that month, a little bit busy. So I think that was another factor that they factored in. But as a personal like preference and why I really like it is that since Pride has moved to September in 2020, I've really noticed a lot of the rural prides flourishing. So there's a pride that's been happening in Glenwood Springs, a pride that happens in Avon that's really incredible. There's one that happens in Montrose and in Uray, and these prides have just really, taken off. And I think because they don't have, Grand Junction to compete with,
Hmm.
you know, stepped in and made Pride this really cool thing for their little local communities. And as someone that is professionally gay, I guess you could say,
Right.
uh, and
Right.
I get to go to all these smaller, Pride events around the state, and I just like there's nothing like a small Pride. I feel like it's just there's so much
Hmm.
magic that happens there.
Hmm.
Um, and it's something that I really appreciate about Grand Junction moving to September.
Why is pride so important?
Oh, that's a big question. There's so many things. Well, I think as I kind of mentioned earlier, it does there is a aspect to pride that kind of embodies the kind of like resistance in a
Hmm.
sense. There is, you'll hear the phrase the first pride was a riot, and it was. And so I think there is that kind of rebellious spirit to it in taking ownership of spaces that we don't usually have for the rest of the year, being ourselves in a really unashamed and unapologetic way. And it heals a lot of the damage that is done when you live in a system that does not um, really support you.
Hmm.
It makes you feel a lot of shame, makes you feel a lot of isolation. If you're an LGBTQ person who's had to suppress a lot of their identity for the comfort of the heterosexual cisgender norm, it can get exhausting. And I think pride is so important because it gives us an opportunity to shed some of that shame and some of that weight of having to conceal a lot of our more colorful, shiny parts of ourselves, and gives us an environment to do that openly and without shame. And it's honestly a major factor in why queer people remain and continue to persist and be resilient.
Right. Yeah. I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So, community at large. You mentioned to me as we were prepping that you are doing a needs assessment. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah. So, as it stands, Loving Beyond Understanding is an LGBTQ serving organization. And so our mission is primarily to meet the unique struggles of the LGBTQ community here. And so what this needs assessment does is basically tell us what those needs are. And we
Mhm.
can make a lot of, really educated guests being LGBTQ people in a community with community of LGBTQ people. But I think the data will really help us be much more clear and decisive about where to take our organization. And so we worked with Colorado West Pride, which is the other LGBTQ serving organization in town, to create and implement a community needs assessment. And so we had some of our staff, we got some consultants, and we created this really amazing survey that asks and digs into some of the needs that the LGBTQ community might have, and to give us really important data to kind of point to problems, in some gaps that might be had in terms of accessing healthcare or navigating employment options, or you know uh, trying to find housing. All these issues that we know to some extent are affecting our community just because of you know circumstantial evidence, being in community, but we don't really have a lot of data on. So
Hmm.
yeah, this is a really exciting project that we've taken on that we're really hoping will give us some really good information.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
How can people like? How are you getting the survey out right now?
You can follow us on Facebook on at Loving Beyond Understanding. You just kind of like punch it in, and it's the first one that comes up. We You can also follow our newsletter. We are announcing it formally. We've done it throughout Pride, but we're announcing the survey formally on Monday. And you can access our newsletter and getting on that list through our website at lovingbeyondunderstanding.org. Um, and you can come into the center. We're at 640 White Avenue every day from 4 to 7, and we have QR codes and we have computers, and we can help you get set up. There is a raffle for a $25 gift card that we're giving away to, I think, our first 150 survey takers.
Heck yeah.
So yeah, it would be really cool. Yeah, just get involved. Get connected virtually and physically. There's a lot of options.
Beautiful. Well, that's great to hear. That's great to hear.
Yeah.
What do you think? You mentioned a couple, but what do you think, just professionally speaking, is some of the top barriers right now for our LGBTQ neighbors?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of bias in my because I have, you know, as I mentioned, I worked for CARS, which is an agency that worked with unhoused youth.
Hmm.
Um, Personal passion. Some of the things I'm noticing is that housing is a huge barrier for a lot of, and it's connected to everything in my head. Access to stable employment, to getting access to healthcare, and to resources. Like, having stable housing is really a catalyst and a barrier for a lot of these things. Um, and
Well, and I know there's an additional, just to cut in too, from your opinion, I know there's an additional burden because we have families that will kick their children out of the home when they come out. I mean, I've at least experienced that or known a few youth in the valley that have had that happen to them.
yeah, so uh, nationally, the statistic is that of all people that are unhoused under the age of 21, that whole population, up to 40% of that population identifies as LGBTQ, which is a
Wow.
huge, huge disproportion to the percentage of LGBTQ people in the actual general population.
Hmm.
So it's a significant rate. You are significantly more at risk of being unhoused, and a lot of it does have to do with household and their approach to whether they validate your identity, or
Hmm.
yeah. And and when I was working in the youth shelter, there's so many instances where parents are just not safe. They don't want to provide a safe, affirming house. um they'll kick their young person out, for being trans or for being gay. And it's really shocking and really alarming, but
Hmm.
it is real and it happens and it does impact the huge disparity of LGBTQ people who are also unhoused for
Right.
sure. And that definitely was mirrored in the actual work I was doing when I was working for the youth shelter.
And why it's so important to have organizations like Loving Beyond Understanding and Colorado West Pride to try and, and is Hilltop still doing some work around this as well?
No, Hilltop is an another really important community partnering agency. They're really big, so they're a
Sure.
really big organization. So they're not as accessible as as some of the departments. But I still they absorbed Caris, so that agency is now connections, Hilltop Connections, and I still have a lot of like personal friendships and connections to that agency. So I work really closely with that agency, and they're still doing a lot of really amazing work with our youth. And it's really great having those connections still embedded in our culture at LBU, because there are situations that do come up where housing is an issue, and we can connect them to um, you know an agency that I still have a good relationship
Hmm.
with and with housing, but there's still so much need out there, and that's only when it comes to youth and people in that population. Because just yesterday I had someone call, who got kicked out of the shelter she was in, um, and just does not feel safe going anywhere. And there's just housing is just such a if you get kicked out of the one shelter, there's nowhere else for you to really go. And if you're
Hmm.
you know trans person, you're much more at risk of getting sexually exploited, of having to you know come across substance use
Hmm.
issues, like just a
Physical
whole
harm.
yeah. And physical harm is a huge one. There's a whole variety of things that you are at increased risk for. So for sure, housing is such a major need that we definitely need more engagement on from the
Yeah,
community as a whole. Yeah, it does affect our community pretty significantly.
for sure. For sure. Well, I think, yeah, it's always kind of like the societal pains, across the board, people are struggling with housing, but especially our most, divested communities and, ones that are honestly shoved to the side. It's just compounded on those issues with employment,
Yeah,
housing, everything that you said. Yeah.
it really does. I mean, I think for trans people, finding stable employments is a struggle, especially employment that pays well enough to actually afford housing.
Hmm.
And all of that relates to risk for substance use, which it's all cyclical, and it all it's a vicious cycle. So if you're less employable because people don't like to hire trans people, like that already puts you at a disadvantage for all those other things, and it's all interconnected for
Right.
sure.
Right. It's hard enough to get a job right now that pays anything. So,
Right.
yeah. Well, to wrap things up here, and we can go a little bit past time because I'm curious on it. We're all about engaging and getting people, especially involved in their democracy. So, can you tell me about? I've always admired it, the One Colorado work and their like lobby day. Are you planning on going this year? Have you gone in the
Oh
past?
yeah. Yeah, no, I go every year. Lobby Day is so I think for me what Lobby Day is, and it is one of those things that you live out in the Western Slope, and we feel so far away and disconnected from the statewide landscape. And what I appreciate about Lobby Day is that you get to go down to the Capitol, talk to your legislators directly about issues that matter to you. And for the young 23-year-old me who did that for the first time 10 years ago, that was transformative. That was a very formative experience for me, in uh feeling like I had some kind of political efficacy.
Hmm.
I get to talk to my representatives about these issues, and whether or not they agree with me, like they know my position and they know that I'm here and that I'm watching and that I'm engaged. So lobby day happens with One Colorado last year. Usually it's around February, and One Colorado will arrange the travel, they'll arrange the lodging, and so we stay down for a day and drive down all together in vans, and uh, you know, the next day we go into the Capitol. It's a chaotic and there's just so many people from all over
Uh-huh.
the in this one area, and they're telling us the bills that are on the agenda. Some of them are ones that we support. Some of them are the ones that we do not like.
Mhm.
Last year, trying to remember. Well, I mean, ones that really stick out for me are Jude's Law, which is the one that made name changes significantly easier.
Right.
We got that one passed. We passed a ban on conversion therapy. Um,
Excellent.
yeah, and those are really amazing things that honestly part of the reason what makes Colorado one of the best states for trans people to live in terms of non-discrimination protections is a lot of the work that organizations like One Colorado does, and the way that they do it is by empowering local communities. So
Hmm.
I love working with One Colorado. I think ever since I started my teen group, being able to bring you know these really young people to the Capitol to talk to their legislators, like it makes me kind of want to tear up a little bit just
Yeah,
thinking about
right?
these kids, that don't really feel connected to politics or anything, but know that it's important, and watching them talk about why it's important to have protections using the bathrooms that they want to use or something, and they're nervous and they're scared, but they do it and they talk to their representatives, and it's probably one of the most incredible experiences being able to witness that as someone that's been that kid and then become a mentor to those kids. And I would strongly encourage anyone who feeling a little disconnected politically to consider going. I know there's a couple of lobby days that happen. I know that Positive Women's Network does one. Um, I think Western Colorado Alliance does one.
Hmm.
Um, and then I know for a fact that One Colorado does one as well. And so yeah, I recommend getting connected to us and to One Colorado would be really uh pretty incredible experience. So
Awesome. Well, I
yeah.
love that. That direct experience, especially with youth, and like, yes, you're exactly right. Even if they don't agree with you, they still have to hear you. They
Right.
still need to hear from their constituents, and we're a democracy, and that's important. I mean,
Yeah.
they should take it seriously if their people are coming. And I think my experience, they're always so excited. Oh my God, they're from Grand Junction. Oh wow, they're
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. No, we always get extra credit because we come from so far, like 5 hours away or whatever. And we always
exactly.
bring a huge group. So yeah,
It's
it's
fantastic.
really great experience.
Awesome. Well, Em, I really appreciate you sharing some of your Sunday with us. It
Yeah,
was
of course.
a great conversation, and I'm just going to tell our followers really make sure to follow Loving Beyond Understanding on Facebook and help
Mhm.
spread their community needs assessment. So,
So,
thanks again, Em.
yeah, thanks, Nick. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
All right. We'll see you all later.